Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I have almost 700 subscribers, which
Shout out.
doesn't sound like a ton to most people, but for me, I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, yeah. And yeah, my biggest video has 16,000 views. So
Congratulations.
yes,
That's
thank you.
huge.
Yeah, I feel like it's huge. It's, yeah, probably not compared to most actual YouTubers, but yeah.
But everybody starts somewhere. That's the thing
Right.
is most
Yeah.
people are like, oh yeah, I've only got, 1,000 or 2,000. It's like, okay, well, the
Yeah,
people that get millions of views started somewhere.
exactly. Yeah, totally. So,
What made you want to start? So it's modern
um,
homesteading with Tessa.
yes. And so what made me want to start was I always had people asking me like, "Oh, that's cool. How do you do that?" Or I'd give someone salsa. "Oh, how do you do that?" And like I saved the seeds from the tomatillos that grew that salsa. You know what I mean? And so I'd be always, explaining like, "Oh, you do this, this, and this," and then or I'd have people over and teach them, how to can something or whatever. And and then I met this gal who is a YouTuber. We were like camping out at Swimmers, and I was talking to her about it. She's like, "You should totally do YouTube." I'm like, "I am so like computer illiterate. There's no way." She's like, "No, if I can do it, you can do it." And walked me through. She was like, "You need to get these programs, whatever," and kind of got me. I was like, "Okay, maybe." And so that's kind of where it started, was just people asking me though, like, "How do you do this?" And like um so yeah, and then the videos is something that I can be like, "Oh, here, just watch the video." you know.
It beats
Yeah.
you having to explain it to every individual
Yes,
person.
exactly. Yeah. So
Was the lady that said you should do YouTube, was she doing homesteading videos as well?
no, she's so Lisa and they do they like travel all around the United States and just YouTube where they're traveling with their family. That's yeah, so yeah.
Pretty sweet gig.
Yeah, and so she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go back and like plant a garden when I get home," and like was all into it, and yeah, so
Were you a little hesitant at first, thinking, "Oh yeah, I mean,
I
YouTube
was
is not
like,
really for me"?
right. I was like, are people even gonna be into that? You know what I mean? And is it gonna be worth the time and effort to do that? Because I know it's a lot, like
A
to
lot of
do
time.
a lot of time and doing the editing, like but I really want to help people do it. You know what I mean? Like I feel like we're so far away from our food, like we're so disconnected. And I love our local community, and I feel like in Humboldt, we're closer to our food than I think a lot of other places, but we're not like there yet, and I think like the backbone of every, strong community is food security. And yeah, so
Close to our food and yet still separated
we're
in a
still
weird
so
way,
far from it. Yeah, we're still so far from it.
which it's interesting that it feels like there's this resurgence going on where
Yeah,
people wanna do homesteading, they wanna
yeah,
live off the grid, they wanna
right.
grow their own food, slaughter their own meat.
Yeah.
It's kind of had a comeback moment.
Totally. But I think like so many of those skills have been lost. Like we skipped, a couple generations of doing it. And so stuff that you normally would have learned from your parents and your grandparents, like we didn't do that. And so I think people are like, okay, I don't even know where to start. You know what I mean? And I think that our diets too are like, we're so dependent on processed, food like substances. We like
For
don't even know
everything.
for everything. We don't know how to cook. We don't know the first thing about it. And so it's a long journey, but I think it's something that people are kind of waking up to. Like COVID happened and we kind of saw how, fragile our food systems were, and I think people are like looking at the future and what's going on and like probably wouldn't be a bad thing to put in a couple tomatoes, you know?
I think COVID woke a lot of people up.
Yeah, totally.
Just the
Absolutely.
idea that, oh, you can go to the grocery store and there's not gonna be
There's no
meat
food.
on the
Yeah.
shelves. Oh,
Uh-huh.
there's not gonna be eggs. There's not
Right.
these staples. What do we do?
Yeah.
We just
What do
eat
we do?
cereal now for the next few months?
Exactly. If you can even get that. Yeah. Uh-huh. So, and that year in 2022, like people are like, "Oh, I'll just grow my own chickens." And so there's this like huge, like, demand for chicks, and all the hatcheries sold out. And so people who like normally bought chicks from the hatcheries were like, "Where's all the chicks?"
Yeah, thanks, guys.
And then once you get chicks, it's still another, 6 months before you have eggs. So, so getting ready now before you need it is kind of the key, you know?
It's weird that the idea of a prepper, I guess you could
Yeah.
kind of throw that in there
Uh-huh.
too.
Yeah.
That used to be the conspiratorial thing back in the day. It was,
Mhm.
oh, you have 6 months worth of food at your house? What?
Right. What are you, a
Yeah,
prepper?
what do you think's
Yeah.
gonna happen? What are you
Right?
gonna blow something up? And now everyone
It's
is in
like,
that state of, oh,
yes.
maybe I should
Uh-huh.
have some
Maybe
water. Maybe
not
I
a
should
bad
have,
idea.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe I should have some
Right?
food somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Had
Yeah.
you always done, I'm assuming you grew up on a farm,
Sorta. Sorta.
farm adjacent.
Sorta. Yeah, I grew up all over Humboldt, so from like Piercy to Hydesville to all over Humboldt County. But like the homesteading stuff didn't really start until I was an adult. So that's when I really I got my first pressure canner when I was 18. And that's when I started like canning. And I lived down in San Diego and I had like these little planters with like cucumbers and like some herbs, you know? And so that's really where it started. But it's been this journey that's been going since then, you know? And I've just been building and building on it. And now I'm at this point where like I could literally live for 2 years on what I have stored right now. And I've made all of it. You know what I mean?
How
And
many people
it's
can say that?
right. I know. Yeah. And like people will be like, "Oh, I know where I'm going when, crap hits the fan." I'm like, No, you're
Sorry,
not."
buddy. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll teach you how though, but I can't feed everybody." That was another motivation behind starting the YouTube channel is people being like, "Oh, I'll just come to your house." No.
That's not what's gonna happen,
No,
guys.
that's not what's gonna happen. And but I'll show you how. Like you can feed yourself. So yeah.
So it slow progression. Had you
Yeah.
always been growing your own food, or that kind of started around
Yeah,
18 too?
that started around 18 or yeah, when I was 18 as well. Yeah. And it was like, started with a couple pots and then like I'd live in an apartment and I'd have like some lettuce or whatever. And then it just expanded from there. Yeah.
Did you just like the idea of growing and storing your own food, or did something happen that
Yeah, so well, when I was a kid, food security wasn't necessarily a given for me without getting too deep. We're not recording yet, right?
No, we're going.
Okay.
We're up. We're up.
Oh, we are.
Yeah, we're
Oh,
going.
oh, we're going.
Yeah.
Oh.
I like to call that the slow roll. We just go in.
Surprise. No, yeah, so food security wasn't necessarily like
The steadiest flow.
right. Yeah. And so it was very important to me, as an adult to have that and to be able to provide that. Because I kind of, had a unique perspective on, what it's like to not have food around. And so I think I have more of an appreciation maybe because I know what it's like to not have that. And so that's kind of, I think, the initial driving factor behind it. Yeah. So,
I am kind of worried about my generation in
oh,
the
yeah.
sense of having and not having. I
Hmm.
think a lot of us have grown up, even if you're not in the best circumstances, you still have a lot.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
the idea, especially regarding food and water, the idea of not having that it's almost too foreign for us. So the idea that,
Right.
oh, we would
Yeah.
need to save this because it might not come is
Right, we're a little spoiled.
that's a great way of summing it up.
Like I think like we don't really know what it's like to really actually truly not have enough food. Yeah. So,
And even if you don't have a lot of money coming in, you could grow your own
oh,
food and subsidize
absolutely.
a lot of that, but most
Yeah.
people don't do that.
I
Either they don't have the space or they don't have the time.
I think it's mostly they don't have the know-how. You can grow a lot of your own food for very inexpensively and on not very much room. Like you could do it in a pot, on a patio in an apartment and still supplement somewhat. And then if you have those skills of being able to preserve food, you can take advantage of times when there's plenty. Like if in the fall when somebody has, an apple tree they're not going to pick, apples from, you can be like, "Oh, I'll come pick them and I'll make applesauce and I'll give you some of the applesauce in trade." And so then you have your pantry stocked up on applesauce for the year, which by the way, tastes so much better than anything you can buy in the store. I don't know if you've ever had homemade
It's
applesauce.
really
Oh,
good.
it's incredible.
Homemade food in general is just
In general. Yes.
usually better.
Oh my gosh. It's like going back to like we went to Montana last fall and I had for a week and I had to buy everything. Dude. Okay, it's so expensive and it's gross.
Especially now. I mean,
Yeah.
egg prices are up
Yeah,
What, $12 a dozen
something
or
like that.
something? It's
Yeah.
something crazy.
And I've not skipped a beat on eggs. Like I'm like, oh yeah, rolling, you know. Uh, no, but I was like, wow, this is insane. Like it does not taste good at all. You know what I mean? Like when you've been making it yourself, and like I love food. I love good food. I love to eat good. It's yeah.
I'm a
It's
sucker for bread. Bread gets
oh
me
yeah.
every time,
Uh huh.
especially a nice loaf of homemade bread,
Oh
and
my gosh,
you
there's
dip it in
nothing
some
better.
butter, and
Yeah, slathered with some Rumiano grass-fed butter. Oh yeah.
there's nothing like just the quality. You can
Yeah.
almost taste it.
Oh, yeah,
And then
absolutely.
I would imagine, especially for you, where you're not eating a lot of processed stuff,
Mhm.
to go to that is just it doesn't
It's night
translate
and day.
well.
No.
Yeah.
No, I actually just recently did a bread making video on my YouTube channel, and it's like it's so easy to do, and it's like 5 ingredients, and, I've had so many people, like, message me and be like, "Oh, I made the bread and it was so good," and, like, people making bread for the first time, and I'm like, "Oh, that is so" like, that is why I'm doing that, you know, is to help people be able to do that, um yeah, it's delicious, absolutely delicious, and
I'll
so
have to check
easy.
that video out. I
Yes.
was watching your lard video
Oh, yeah,
today,
uh-huh,
and I
yeah.
didn't realize how much vitamin D is in lard. I would have
Yeah.
never thought that.
Isn't that crazy? It's the second highest food source of vitamin D. Like, the only thing that has more vitamin D in it that you can eat is cod liver oil, which,
How many of us are eating that?
like, yeah, yeah, not really into that. Like, and I can't produce that. You know what I mean? But like, lard is just this natural byproduct. If you're raising your own pigs, then you have all this fat anyway. And, you know, anytime you're raising an animal, you want to honor as much of the animal as you can. And it's a fat source that you can produce on the homestead. And it's actually really, really good for you. Like, there was this study, it was like BBC or something that did this study on, they started out with 1,000 different foods, and then they narrowed it down to the 100 most nutritious foods. And on that list, pork fat was number 8 most nutritious, like more than, like, you know, chia seeds. And so it's actually really, really good for you in moderation, of course. But if the rest of your diet is looking like, you know, home raised, you know, pork and like some corn on the cob, then some lard is a great addition to that kind of diet, you know? So yeah, lard is like totally got a bad rap. It started with Crisco. So
Why
like
am I not surprised that that name would
yeah.
come up?
Okay. So lard used to be like just a staple in, you know, households for cooking fat or whatever. And then Crisco, it was like one of the first really effective marketing campaigns with Crisco, you know, s- basically saying how lard was terrible and not bad for you, and how vegetable oil was way healthier, you know, healthier alternative for you. And which we know now is not true, you know, all these hydrogenated fats and stuff. There was also around that same time, Upton Sinclair wrote a book called The Jungle. I don't know if you've heard of it,
I've not.
but he talks about in New York, they were uh, in these lard factories. They had these like giant vats of lard rendering down or whatever. And he said that like people would fall in them and then like just get rendered down with the rest of the lard and get sent out to the public, which wasn't true. But everyone was like, ew,
Effective branding.
right. Very effective. And so, so that like Crisco, you know, marketing campaign was so effective that we still have this like collective recoil when it comes to lard. You know what I mean? Like Tina, you know.
That was a great reference.
Yeah.
Subtle plug there.
Right? Yeah. So,
Diet is just weird in
yeah.
general today. There was
Yeah.
some, I don't know if it was an NIH poster or something. It circulated online for a little while about how I think it was cereal is better than a grass-fed steak on
Oh,
their whatever hierarchy they came out with. And some people actually believe that. They think that
right.
you can have too much red meat, or that you really shouldn't eat a lot of animal products.
Meanwhile, there's like the guy who like only ate beef and water for a year. Did you see that? And he was
Is
like way
that's not Liver
healthier.
King, is it?
I don't know. I can't
Okay.
remember.
Liver King, that was the guy taking PEDs and he just looked
Yeah,
shredded.
yeah, uh-huh, and he was, like, way healthier and in better shape than ever, um, but I I mean, it changes so much, like, from year to year on what they say we should be eating, you know what I mean? And you gotta wonder too what kind of lobbying and subsidizing is affecting what comes out of those studies, you know what I mean? So, I guess for me, I'm just, you know, eh, eating what we used to be able to produce ourselves. Like, we didn't used to have all these problems with, obesity and with heart problems and all that stuff. Like, we didn't used to like have that problem until our diet started to change just in the last like what 200 years, you know? So think about what we were eating before that. We were eating a lot of red meat, we were eating a lot of vegetables, some grains, but I mean, if you've ever grown grain, you know it takes a lot of effort to grow enough grain to eat the amount that we as a society are eating, proportionally now. And so that's kind of what I don't know if I would call it keto or whatever. I just eat what I can make. You know what I mean? And a lot of meat and a lot of vegetables is the bulk of it. But yeah, the diet thing, it just changes. Like one year they're like, "Oh, it's good for you." And next year you're like, "Oh, no, it's bad for you." And it's yeah, changes a lot. It's weird.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head with the lobbying aspect. I mean, we know that for a fact with the
Mhm.
sugar industry that it
Right.
lobbied,
Uh-huh. Yep.
and
And corn.
and
Corn's
the
majorly
idea that
subsidized.
that wouldn't translate to anything else. That no, they
Right.
just stopped at sugar
Right.
and corn
Right.
and some soy.
Right.
But no, they didn't go anywhere. They didn't attack meat. They didn't attack fat.
Right. Yeah. No,
It's
it's
crazy.
it's sus. It's definitely, like yeah, gets you thinking like, maybe I just won't listen to them.
I know people that eat like Honey Nut Cheerios or those kind of lesser cereals where it's not just complete sugar, like Frosted
Mhm.
Flakes. I'm a sucker for Frosted
Yeah.
Flakes. And they think that that's not bad for them.
Right.
It's like,
No,
look,
it's
do you see how it's like 54 grams of sugar per cup?
yeah,
And it's
which
like, you
is
don't think
yeah.
that's okay?
And simple carbs, like no. Yeah, that's yeah.
Which, if you want to eat it, I'm all for you doing
Go
whatever you
for
want
it.
to do.
Do what you want
But
to
at
do. Yeah.
least let's help people be informed about it.
Right.
That's what
Yes.
gets
For
me.
the people who are open to, learning and want to maybe make some changes and have seen maybe some negative health effects from that kind of diet and, or have a wake up call and they need to change their diet. For those people, those are, for me on the YouTube, those are my target audience. I'm not gonna, I'm not out here trying to convince people, that having fried eggs is better than Fruit Loops every morning, if you're into Fruit Loops. But for the people who are like, I want to start eating better, and I really want to be more secure in my food sources and I want to have a hand in that and I want to be able to pronounce the ingredients in my food, those would be the audience that I'm speaking to.
That's your target.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Do you get a lot of, I would imagine, a lot of support from that community saying, what you're doing is great. Like,
Oh,
we need
yeah.
more of
No, people
this.
are super into it. And like I have people who are like bought their first canner and they're like, look at my, shelf of canned stuff and they're like buying seeds and getting ready for garden season and like people are like super into it. And they're like, I had no idea you could even do that. And so yeah, no, people are stoked on it. Yeah, more than I actually even anticipated. Yeah. So that's been cool.
That's a good sign.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people just, it's hard, like you said, getting the resources and figuring out if you don't have anybody in your immediate family that is doing this.
Right. Yeah.
That's one of the beautiful things about YouTube is you can go to
Oh,
this
yeah.
site and
Yeah.
learn whatever you want to learn.
Right.
And it's all
Exactly.
there.
Uh-huh. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We live in a great day and age. But those skills take time to build. You know what I mean?
That's
Like
the problem, is it's not an overnight transition.
right. Yeah. It's one thing to watch the video on how to butcher a deer. It's another thing to actually do it, and do every little part and then become proficient at it to where you can do it without watching the YouTube video. So it's a great starting point for sure. And we're really fortunate to be living in a day and age where we have access to that. But there's still, the idea of building those skills. I mean, if the internet's not there, you know what I mean? Like y- that's a possibility. And I guess that's kind of what I'm, prepared for is like, and the deeper you get into it, the more you know that you don't know. You know what I mean? The more you learn, the more you realize how much you need to learn. And like the idea of people, being like, oh, if grocery stores run out, I'll just go get a deer. Like,
and just think
I don't know if you've ever
that
been
it's
deer
that
hunting.
easy. I'll
Yeah.
just go out into the forest. And I'll
Like
get one with
like
my
people
bare
just
hands.
get a deer every year. You know what I mean? And don't realize like that's not a given. And if you're just relying on that for your one source of red meat, then you're going to be hungry, you know? And so getting out there and doing it and finding where the struggles are and, streamlining systems and finding what you can do in your area too, so like someone in the South might be able to grow, a ton of, I don't know, like watermelons or whatever, like we can't do that like in this climate as much. So finding out what works in your climate and also your like local microclimate and learning all of that stuff too. So yeah, it's a lot to it.
I talk a lot about this thin veneer of society and how we all we live in this weird protective bubble where we don't really have to think about certain things because we're a part of society. We're mostly
Mm-hmm.
safe.
Yeah.
And I think food is one of the foundations of that
Oh, absolutely.
because as long as there's stable food, as long as there's electricity, life's pretty okay. It's
Right.
pretty okay. We have a lot of problems,
Right.
but it's pretty okay.
Right.
Power goes off, shit hits the fan.
Oh my
Shit hits the
gosh,
fan.
people panic. It's crazy. And I was seeing on like Facebook and stuff, people are like, is Winco open? I'm like, who is grocery shopping right now? But there are people who can't go,
They don't have anything.
have nothing, like for a day, for hours without a grocery store. And that is kind of
The
scary.
toilet paper shortage is
Oh,
what made me realize, oh, it would get ugly fast. Is because if you're
fast.
going to the store and your concern is toilet paper in a power
Right.
outage,
Right.
we have some serious
We're a
problems.
long ways off, yeah. Whereas, like, when all, the earthquakes and the flooding and everything, I was just like, "I'll just hunker down," I'm not gonna go to the store, you know what I mean? Like, it was just crazy to me that people were, um, like, can't even go a day. That's scary because then people do crazy stuff when they're desperate, you know?
People do crazy stuff when they're not desperate.
That's true,
And then to be
yeah.
desperate, it's like, we're gonna up this a couple
Right.
notches.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. And it goes south fast. Like what was the snowstorm in Buffalo? Did you see that stuff?
Yeah, some people died, I believe,
Yeah.
in their car. There
People
was
died
one
in their
girl that
car.
died a couple blocks from her house
Yes.
and just froze to death.
And like why are you outside? Like but people were like looting stores like immediately. Like it hadn't even been hours. People are snowed in. They're already looting stores and stealing stuff and, hey, like crazy, crazy. Immediately. It didn't take long at all.
When people don't feel safe,
Mhm.
they can justify whatever they want.
Mhm. That is true.
And there's so many people. If you're in a big
Yeah.
city, I mean, even here,
Yeah.
where there's not a whole lot of people, but if you're down in LA,
Right?
what are you gonna
Dude,
do? Shit hits the
ugly.
fan. You've got millions of people fighting for
Right.
survival.
Right. No, that's like the worst place to be if, anything pops off is like in a big city like that. It's scary.
Even if
Yeah.
it's just an earthquake, you
Right.
don't wanna be
Yes.
there.
Uh-huh. Exactly. Even if it's just a minor, incident that happens, let alone something actually like a really big deal. So,
When we had that earthquake a couple weeks ago and it knocked the power out, I went to Murphy's to just grab some stuff.
yeah.
And I bought some canned foods and some fruits, non-perishable kind of stuff.
Right.
And everybody around me was grabbing frozen dinners and all this stuff.
What?
And I'm thinking, you don't
What
even
are you
have
gonna
power to
Right.
heat.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
happening? The cashiers laughed when I rolled up and he's like, oh, you've been through this before. And I was like, apparently nobody else has
Right.
because everybody's grabbing food. You need a
Yeah.
stove or you need your
Right.
microwave.
So what I was doing during the power outage, I went to my pantry and I pulled out a jar of some homemade turkey soup that I had made and a jar of green beans and I think like a jar of tomato sauce or something and I put it in a Dutch oven on the wood stove and warmed it up and that was dinner. You know what I mean? Like no power needed, like everything was all ready to go. And it was all homegrown, homemade stuff. Didn't have to leave. We already had the wood fire going anyway. And so it was very low impact.
Well, and you're the prime example of how easy it could be
Mm.
because you're growing everything. You've
Oh,
got all
yeah.
your own stores.
Right. Yeah.
The people that are going to the store, that's the last person you want to be. If you can hunker
Yeah.
down for a day, okay.
Right.
You don't want to be the one that's going to the store right when it happens, which was
Immediately.
me. I was in that crowd
Yeah.
And I'm looking around, I'm like, "This would be so bad if
Yeah.
shit really hit the fan."
And think about if it just went on, a little longer, then people get more and more desperate and do more desperate things. And yeah. But it's really not that hard. It's really not. It just takes, thinking about it. Like I'm, meal planning now for like what I'm eating next fall. You know what I mean? I'm already thinking about like, okay, what am I, what animals am I going to grow? What crops am I going to grow? I'm, looking at my stores of canned food and I'm like, oh, I probably want to grow more green beans next year, or whatever. And so it takes that forethought though of like not going day to day or week to week or even month to month, like thinking at the beginning of the season, the beginning of the growing season, like, okay, what do I need to do more of this year or whatever. But even if you don't have land to grow your own stuff, you can find people who have too much stuff. And if you have those preserving skills, like I said with the applesauce, like you can put food on your shelves, and just by having the skills, even if you live in an apartment, you know what I mean. So learning the skills is where it's at. Yeah.
Well, and if you know the skills and can do a little bit on your own, you can trade that stuff for things that
Mm-hmm.
you don't have, which you can't
Absolutely.
go to a grocery store and do that. They'd
Right.
laugh you out the front door.
Exactly. I started this Facebook group called Humboldt Homestead Trade Post, where people can go on and be like, "Hey, I have too many plums," and someone else is like, "Oh, I have a lot of lemons. Let's trade." You know what I mean? Or like I recently traded some pickled beets for some sunchokes, because I wanted some sunchokes or whatever. And so if you have like a whole bunch of one thing, like you have a trading, value to trade with someone else who has food. So you've
That's a
seen,
cool resource.
yeah, yeah. So if you just know how to do stuff, then be all right.
Do you think we're gonna continue the trend where more people try to pick those skills up?
I do. I think that people from all walks of life and all ages, I've seen people, that they've really been wanting to do it. And I think that those people, like once they start, they're not going to be able to go back. You know what I mean? Like once they have homemade applesauce, they're not going to want to go back to the store because they'll realize how easy it is, and how attainable it really is. So I think we are going to continue to see an upward trend in people wanting to do that kind of stuff for sure. Yeah.
It's weird that there are people out there that push back against that, that don't want people doing that. They say, "No, you should just go to the grocery store. Why do you need to do this? Why do you need to waste your time? It doesn't matter. The grocery stores are always gonna be there."
Control the food, control the people, right? So whoever has control of the food has control of the people. So I think that the people who maybe don't want to be, controlled are going to want to do that. But there is that pushback. Like I have literally had someone tell me, like when I was talking about, okay, it actually was applesauce, and they're like, you know what I do when I want applesauce? I go to the store and I buy applesauce. And I was like, good for you, Gary. Like, but so I mean, but those are the people who are gonna be hurting if,
Gary's gonna be
somehow
the first one to go if shit hits the
Gary's gonna be the
fan.
first one to go. Yeah, for sure. So I'm not, gonna concern myself with them. Like that's you do what you want. And that's the beauty of America is you do what you want. You know what I mean? Don't like it, don't look.
Not even in a control aspect, but the push towards non-animal animal products is what
Ooh, isn't
freaks me
that
out.
weird?
Freaks me out, especially when it comes from Bill Gates. I know people go down the
Yeah.
rabbit hole of
Oh yeah.
Bill Gates is some
Buying all the
conspiracy. Yeah,
farmland. Yeah.
that's real though. The
It
farmland,
is.
the push towards fake eggs and fake
Yes.
meat
Lab grown
freaks me
meat.
out.
Yeah. Isn't that a trip? Yeah. No, that
And
is
people's willingness to just toe the line.
the
Yes, we
Beyond
need to do
Burger.
this for the environment. We need to stop eating meat. You just have to suck it up and do this.
Yeah, no, that is really, really scary to me, actually, because that stuff can't be good for you. It can't be good for you. There's no way. Something grown in a lab or whatever. I don't trust it, and I think though with that concern with the climate, it's not the people who are like here in Humboldt, the Humboldt grass fed beef or whatever. Those are not the people you know, negatively affecting the environment. It's the massive, massive, concentration camp factory farms that are, when you put that many animals into one space, like you're gonna have a multitude of issues. But the people who are, like locally growing stuff that doesn't have to travel very far to get to you. It's not using tons of fossil fuel to get to you. It's not using tons of fossil fuel to produce. Um, it's not contributing to a post antibiotic era, like the overuse of antibiotics. Because when you put all those animals together, you kind of have to use an obscene amount of antibiotics as a preventative to just keep them alive. Um, so you're not contributing to that. So the people that are out here like have thousands of acres with cows on them, those are not the people contributing to. But that's how we all want our food to be grown, right? Like that's the ideal. We want our chickens to be running around, eating grass and bugs and stuff. And we want to see cows out, on pasture. And then you like drive by like Harris Ranch down south. Have you ever driven by that place? It's like just thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of cows all crammed in. And the beef industry is actually one of the least, one of the better ones. It's when you get into like chickens
The
and
chicken ones scare me.
pigs. The chicken
I've seen some
one,
of those PETA videos
of
where
like
the
the
chickens are
cages
just
in the battery cages.
yeah.
Dude, isn't that, and the battery cages, yeah, they'd have like 7 chickens in like that big. They can't even,
And they're pushing out the sides
yes,
because they're too
missing
big.
feathers. Like they routinely clip beaks so that they're not A, wasting feed, or B, picking at each other. So then the battery cages have actually kind of gone the way of the yo-yo a little bit, and we have moved now to this cage-free thing though. But have you ever seen an actual cage-free egg operation? It's like the same amount of birds in the same amount of space, but now they're just not in cages. And so you think about the air quality, all those feathers just kicking up all that fecal matter. Um, and B, now they're all just like picking on each other. Like I don't know if you've seen chickens like hang out together. There's the term pecking order comes from chickens. Like there's a hierarchy, and those lower on the hierarchy get pecked on by the higher up chickens. Okay, so when you put that many little T-Rexes in that small of a space, they're gonna beat each other up. Did you know too that chickens are the closest living relative to
I
T-Rexes?
did know that. It's
Yeah.
pretty great. They're little dinosaurs. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the perfect
Yeah.
way to
Oh,
phrase
they
it.
are. Yeah. And watching chickens makes me like 10 times more afraid of T-Rexes. They're
Yeah, I've heard
ruthless.
that chickens they'll eat anything if
Oh,
they
yeah.
think they can get it.
Oh, yeah. They'll totally like cannibalize each other. Like if one chicken starts to get a little wound, they'll all like pick at it. You have to like separate them and spray it with blue stuff to keep them from picking on them. No, they're ruthless. Yeah.
Is the pecking order just a dominance structure?
Yeah, dominance and who gets first dibs on the food and the water and the best perching spots, best roosting spots at night. And yeah, who's the top rooster, not that they have roosters in though, but who has the ladies. And yeah, so it's just a hierarchy thing, yeah. So
Those facilities
yeah,
scare the shit out of me.
they're
And the fact
terrible.
that you can't film inside of them
Right? Yeah.
and those people get in trouble for doing that
Yeah.
because
Well,
we
I
can't have the
mean,
public see it.
okay, so we go back to we have freedom, right? They have the freedom to do it for now. The only thing that we really can do is vote with our dollars and not buy it. The reason that it exists is because people buy it, right? And so if we stop buying it, then there stops being a demand for it. And I seriously think chickens could save the world. So,
Just as
um,
a food product?
oh, just food product as eliminating food waste. So, like in the United States, we waste 40% of all the food that we produce. Have you ever heard that? 40%, like all the food
That's a
that,
crazy high number.
right? Isn't it? Like all the food that we make in the United States that is intended for human consumption, we waste 40% of it along the chain. And most of it is down like at the consumer level. Um, but so they did this experiment in Belgium, and they were trying to find a way to reduce their food waste in this one city in Belgium. And so someone had the absolutely genius idea to give chickens out. So they gave out, I can't remember how many chickens, but to all these households in the city, and they dramatically reduced their food waste. And also, as like an awesome byproduct, the eggs, you got eggs too. So like any household could support, 4, 5, 6 chickens. and not have to buy chicken food and completely eliminate their food waste and then also have eggs. You know
So
what I
they're
mean?
just feeding their waste to the
Yes,
chickens.
exactly. So all of like, what's left over on your plate or like you clean out your fridge. You know what I mean? Like chickens, pretty much anything that you or I could eat, a chicken can eat. So it would completely eliminate food waste, completely eliminate the need for the commercial egg industry, and chickens are awesome. But anyway, yeah. So I think that that would be awesome if
And
we
low maintenance, right? Chickens are pretty easy
super
to
low
take care
maintenance,
of.
very low maintenance. Yes, exactly. You just feed them, let them do their thing, provide them. They need a place to roost at night and they need a nest box. That's pretty much it. If you have a predator issue, you want to be able to lock them up at night. But most people living in town are not going to have that kind of problem. So, yeah, no, chickens are awesome. I love chickens.
And then you kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah,
Food
exactly.
waste and you have eggs. And you
Exactly.
could also eat the chickens.
Exactly. Yep, exactly.
The argument
Win-win.
that I've always heard is that in order to have society set up the way that we do, you need to have factory farming. Do you buy into that?
Agree. In order to have factory farmed humans, you have to have factory farmed animals. So if you have all these people living in such a close concentration of, proximity, then yeah, you do have to have that. But I also, personal opinion, I think that's unnatural too. To have so many people living in such a close proximity, I think is not not real sustainable. Yeah.
It it affects the way that you view people when you're climbing over everybody all
Yeah,
day
it
in and day out.
does. Well, I mean, you go to the city or an airport, you know what I mean? And people are mean, like for no reason.
It's
Like
survival of the airports especially, it's survival of the
airports.
fittest. You're gonna get
Yeah,
run over if you stop for too long.
exactly. Like be nice, but it's that perceived anonymity. Like we don't know people, so we don't care. And the internet just amplifies that, with the perceived anonymity. And you see what people say to each other online. Like I would never say to somebody in person. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think that that environment is, I- I don't know if that is the best thing for humans to live either. You know what I mean? And again, I understand that's a personal preference, but um yeah, that's what I think.
Do you think we could get it to a model where everybody's growing their own stuff? I mean, would that be feasible at scale for people in LA or in San Diego or these bigger cities?
I think in LA, no, I don't think you could do it in LA or in San Diego. No, I don't think you could. I think that it would take, like you could have every single rooftop covered in a rooftop garden. It's not going to grow enough. You know what I mean? And but then like the air quality, everything. You know what I mean? Like I no, I don't think it's.
There's just too many factors when you
There's,
get
there's
at
too many
that
people
scale.
too close together. Yeah, too many people too close together. And you think about the magnitude of stuff that has to be shipped in from all over the place in order to sustain that. Yeah.
I mean, what's the alternative? I think you could start with just fixing factory farming and make it so that these
Maybe.
animals aren't stacked on top of each other. Maybe you have fewer animals spread out farther, but then that affects the bottom line. And are they willing to do that?
Right. So if people are willing to pay for that, then absolutely. Like if people are willing to pay the true cost of what it takes to raise, you know, animals ethically, then yes, absolutely we can. But I don't think that people are willing to pay that true price. You know what I mean? Of what it actually takes to raise something ethically. It's always going to take more, you know, than the factory farms. You know what I mean? So um, I don't know. Yeah.
What do you think the price difference would be for like you to raise a chicken versus the chicken that you would buy for $6 at Costco?
Double at
Double.
least. Yes. Absolutely. Okay, so the Costco chicken thing is a very interesting thing. So Costco actually loses money on the rotisserie chickens. That is not a moneymaker for them. It is, something that draws people in, gets them to the back of the store. But they actually do not make money on a rotisserie chicken, and there is no way you could even raise a chicken for $5 or $6 or whatever, let alone have it processed and roast, you know what I mean,
I was
rotisserie
thinking
or
of the
whatever.
rotisserie
Yeah.
chicken when I said that. I had
Right.
no idea.
Yeah, no, they lose money on that. That's not a moneymaker. So if you're looking at numbers that actually raising chicks, and it's all economy of scale too. You know what I mean? The more you're buying at once, the cheaper it's usually going to be. But like you're gonna pay like $3 at least for $2, $3 for a chick that like might die. And then you're gonna pay another, um, off the top of my head, I would say probably 15, 10 bucks probably in feed for the lifetime of the chicken. Then you have the processing time, all the equipment and stuff. But I'll come back to that. There's a way that if people locally want to process their own chickens. Um, so at the end of the day, you're looking at, I don't know, $20 just to raise a chicken.
20 bucks for a chicken.
Yeah.
And what are we talking about lifespan wise to where you would
Oh, it's
cultivate?
super fast, 7 weeks.
7 weeks. So 20
7
bucks for
weeks.
7 weeks.
Yeah, so there's a huge difference between like egg laying chickens and meat chickens. So egg laying chickens, they're completely separate creatures entirely. So an egg laying chicken, is bred to lay eggs. They live for a few years, 5, 7 years. In the commercial industry, they usually don't keep them past the first year, maybe two. Um, and they're very light bodied. If you were to process one for meat, you would be surprised.
Disappointing.
Very disappointed. Yes. Like there's no breast meat. They're very, very slight, small bodied birds that were bred just to lay eggs. So a meat chicken, like what you find in the store, is actually a hybrid. That's a result of all this breeding. Very, very specialized. There's only like 4 companies in the world that even do this, and then that last cross, that last hybrid, results in this meat blob of a chicken, and they grow crazy fast. So, like, you'll buy them as a chick, and then 6 to 7 weeks later, they'll be 6 or 7 pounds dressed weight, like huge chicken. And so yeah, so they grow incredibly fast.
Don't I think I read something that if you don't slaughter them,
Right.
their weight will just crush their
They'll
legs.
literally like collapse under the weight of their own body. Like their bones cannot keep up with it. However, having said that, I will say that if you restrict feed and keep them in like a more free range type of lifestyle, and if you raise them with other chickens, I've done this before where I've gotten Cornish cross chickens to live for even 2 years, couple years, long enough that I was able to hatch chicks out of the eggs that they laid, like long enough that they're laying eggs and stuff. So you can, but no, they're not designed to do that. It's like usually unethical. Like if you were really feeding them and raising them for meat, you have to process them. You can't just be like, oh, he'll just live here. No, you have to process them. It's yeah,
That's
not
pretty crazy.
it is. Yeah,
I
like
mean, talk about literally just breeding for food.
oh,
That's
yeah, They can't naturally reproduce. They don't even live long enough to lay eggs usually. Yeah. No, their sole purpose is to
just eat
just to eat.
and then be
Yes.
eaten.
Yes. So then in the middle, you got, excuse me, egg laying chickens, and then you have meat chickens. In the middle, we have what we call dual purpose chickens. So back in the day, we used to just raise, dual purpose chickens, big meaty chickens, for meat, but they're gonna take 5, 6 months to grow out and to finish, and they're not gonna be nearly like the breast meat is gonna be next to nothing, on them. And so they're not gonna look anything like what you would be used to in the store. So, and there's kind of a resurgence with the dual purpose breeds coming back, people wanting to do that. And they taste wise, they're a little bit tougher because they're not like baby chickens. You know what I mean? They're a little bit tougher, but there's a lot more flavor in them. And they're a lot more like chickeny, deep, rich flavor. But you definitely have to cook them different, like a low, slow, long time. Yeah.
And to raise them, it takes longer.
And a lot more feed. You're going to spend at least double the amount of feed on raising them. Yeah.
Why do they why do they get rid of the hens that they're using for egg laying after 1 to 2 years if they're
Right.
viable for a few more?
Well, so the hen is going to lay the most eggs the first year, and then it slowly dwindles after that. So as they get older, they'll lay less and less eggs. And so from a production, if you're trying to do max production, then it's cheaper to just get rid of that batch and get a whole new batch of chickens that's going to be, first year layers that are laying the maximum amount of money. So or amount of eggs.
Are they what do? They just off the hens? They don't
Yeah.
use any of it.
No, I think they will use them, and I think a lot of that goes into like soup and stock and stuff like that will be used for that. And Yeah, so they will use them, and there's, like, rescues out there that rescue, battery cage chickens and stuff like that, but that's a small percentage, but, yeah, but they'll still lay for, a few more years, yeah. It'll definitely drop off, but their eggs actually get bigger too. As they, get older, they'll lay bigger eggs.
Man, it's a tough trade-off
It
because who's
is.
gonna wanna pay $20
I
at the
know,
grocery store for a
right.
chicken?
Well, like, farmer's market, a chicken's, like, $8 a pound, you know what I mean? Which, I mean, maybe prices are gonna in the store, it looks like they're getting
Yeah, the
up
way it's
there.
going, it might
Yeah,
actually be a
uh-huh.
comfortable trade-off.
Yeah, like, farmer's market, like, grass, pasture-raised chicken is, yeah, like $8 a pound. Like, a boneless skinless chicken breast would be $15 a pound. But if you taste that stuff, like, if you've ever had have you ever had a pasture-raised chicken?
I
So
don't I don't think
okay,
so.
so there's this way of raising, meat birds. Instead of, like, cramming them all into, a big, huge building, they never see the light of day, um, you can raise them on pasture. And so they have to be in a brooder for the first 3 weeks. And a brooder is just, it has a heat lamp and it's like a nice little nursery area for the chicks. Then they move out to what you would call a chicken tractor. And so then they have access to eating grass and bugs, and they move and they have sunshine and they're happy, and then you move them to a new patch of grass every day. And so then they're not sitting in their own feces. They're not, like, nasty. If you saw the commercial meat, chicken industry, you would probably never eat chicken again. But so they're not covered in their own feces. They move to a new patch of grass every day. Up to 20% of a chicken's diet can be grass. And so, and chickens who are eating grass and in the sunshine have way more vitamin D in their meat than anything you could buy, from a factory farm. And so you move them every day, and then process them, and that chicken tastes phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I had someone who I shared some of my chicken with who does not like chicken at all, doesn't like chicken, loved it, absolutely loved it, and it tastes night and day, completely different, yeah. So, maybe if they tasted it, they might.
Be more inclined.
Yeah, and if they knew that, the conditions that that chicken lived its life in, it was a happy chicken and it was in the sunshine and, it wasn't crammed into a factory and then it wasn't processed on a factory line where they don't always get them before they get them to the scald. They don't always finish the job before they get to the scalder kind of thing. And like factory chickens are like literally dipped in bleach because they're so like a bleach solution because there's so much bacteria and like in the factory line. And so anyway, so if you knew all that, then you might be willing to pay more for a chicken,
Almost
yeah.
enough to make you wanna go vegan, but then
Right,
not. I
right.
mean, it's just meat's too
Actually,
good.
yeah, when I, was going to school down in San Diego, I could not find, like, local good sources of meat, and I was a vegetarian for, like, 3 years because I couldn't
You didn't
I
wanna participate in
I didn't
that.
wanna participate. Yes, exactly. So, I'm super picky about my meat, like, I feel like we have, I don't know, like, this responsibility to, honor the things we eat, you know what I mean? And, to, yeah, not participate in that. Yeah.
Well, you seem to have that ethos on your channel of utilizing the animal to the
Yeah. Oh,
fullest,
absolutely, yeah.
and I don't think that's as apparent today as it was back in the
I
day.
don't think so. I mean, it goes back to the lard, like, who even uses lard anymore, you know what I mean? And no, I don't think, in a lot of aspects that we're using as much as we can, you know
Well,
what I
how
mean?
many people eat organ meat today?
Right, I know, yeah, that's true. Makes great crab bait.
I
That's what
didn't know that.
that's what I use organ meat for is for crab bait, yeah.
Do you eat a lot of the organ meat from the animals?
I'm not a fan of it, no,
Really?
not a big fan of the organ meat. Yeah, I like
I've been
liver
on
and
a liver
stuff.
kick.
Really?
Yeah, I
Oh, I
have
got chicken liver for you.
I have, like, 4 ounces a day.
Oh, really? Yeah?
Yeah.
How do you cook it?
I've started air frying it because I
Oh, that might be good.
pan frying it is a little I seem to overcook it, so
Yeah.
I throw it in the air fryer, and then I don't think I've dialed down my technique yet, but it's
Yeah?
enough where I can eat it and I'm not gagging.
What are some of the health yeah, that's my problem. It's a texture thing for me with the liver. I'm really not a big fan of it, no. What are the health benefits of liver? I don't even know.
Um, I'm just gonna parrot things that I've heard. It's just incredibly nutrient dense. The
Yeah.
organ meat
Uh-huh.
is I mean, we all should be from what I've heard from people way smarter than me, we should all be eating organ meat because it's just
Probably.
super dense.
Yeah.
Liver, heart.
Yeah.
It has a ton of vitamins in it. It's got a ton of nutrients.
Yeah.
I think most of the animals, most predators, when they get a kill,
Yeah, they go for
that's what
that
they
stuff
go
first.
for.
Oh,
And I
yeah,
think that
totally.
probably
That's
says something,
telling.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I do like heart. I will eat heart, like,
I
from
haven't tried heart
venison
yet.
and elk and stuff. I do like heart. So that's, like, if you cook it right, it tastes like a steak. It's fantastic, yeah. So, but liver, it's a texture thing. If I could find a way, but for now, it makes fantastic crab bait.
The texture is rough. The smell can occasionally get me too,
Yeah.
but once I'm eating it, I'm like, okay,
Yeah, I
we're
can do
okay.
this.
I can push
Yes,
through. We're gonna
yeah.
be fine.
For your health. Yeah. Uh-huh.
That's what I tell myself. For my health, I could do this.
Right, uh-huh.
But yeah, I eat a lot of that. I eat a lot of steak.
Mhm.
Meat is basically most of my diet, and then
Same, yeah.
I do a lot of fruits and some vegetables.
Right. Yes. That's same with me. It's a lot of meat. Like, so I grow the chickens. We grow pigs. We have some beef cows. We do a lot of hunting, so like venison and elk and turkey, and that kind of stuff. And so that's like, yeah, that's the basis of our diet is whatever meat that we can produce or get ourselves. A lot of fish and crab and stuff too. Yeah. So
Fish, I love fish. I've been kind of
yeah.
freaked out recently hearing about the levels of toxic metals
Oh, and
in
mercury and stuff,
yeah,
yeah,
supposedly mercury is
uh-huh,
super bad.
yeah, like, when you're pregnant, you're not supposed to eat, like, like, h fish that are high up on the food chain, yeah. No, that is kinda freaky, that's true, yeah, but I think if you're not eating a ton of it, it's probably okay, I don't really
Yeah, I
know.
think you can get by.
Yeah,
But
uh-huh.
I mean, that's another ball game that's just insane. The fact that we're pulling out millions and millions of fish out of the ocean every day and just
Yeah,
we hope everything's okay down there.
yeah, yeah, I don't I'm not super educated on all that, I know, like, the salmonid populations locally have had a really, really rough go, like, it's, like, something like 2% of what numbers used to be, which is crazy.
We just have a problem of overdoing everything
Yeah, we can
at
yeah,
every level.
right, yeah. No, we do. That's yeah, human way.
You know what always trips me out is when you get into the hunting realm,
Yeah.
because it seems like people that's if there's an attack pyramid,
Oh, man.
that's the peak. That's the top of the
People
ladder.
jump on y yeah, uh-huh, but, I love hunting, and I kinda think like Steven Rinella, I don't know if you know Ste yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the Meat
So
Eater podcast.
yes,
Not that he needs a
exactly.
plug, but
Well, you're right, but he basically says, like, "I don't think anybody loves the game that they're hunting more than hunters," and that is so true, like, I don't think anybody loves deer more than deer hunters, like, I love deer, I love to look at them, I love to study them, I love to watch I love them, and as such, I think that hunters are far more concerned with conservation efforts than probably any other population. Further, they contribute financially more than any other population of people as far as conservation efforts and monitoring populations and stuff like that. So yeah,
yeah, without hunters,
yeah,
I mean, deer
right,
populations, bear populations, like
right.
where do people think all that money comes from? It's from
Exactly. Right.
hunters paying into
Exactly.
it.
Exactly. And yeah, because they love it, and so without that, then there wouldn't be the level of um research and care and dedication, to those conservation efforts for sure. Yeah.
And in terms of food quality, that is also at the top of the pyramid.
Oh
So you have
yeah.
those two
Oh,
camps. It's the people
absolutely.
that want to really be in touch with their food,
Right.
you go to hunting. The
Yeah.
people that really hate people doing that, hunting is the
Right.
go-to.
Right. It doesn't get any more free range than that. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? And
or quality-wise. I
right,
mean, that's the
exactly. Oh,
top of the
absolutely.
chain.
Yeah. And I think another, Stephen Rillo thing he says is like to not hunt is a relatively new human experiment. Like for us to not be hunters is only in the last like, couple hundred years, you know? And so I think that that is like a big part of how we think, you know what I mean? And that whole process of hunting. And I think that, that's why so many people are so like crazy about it because it reconnects us with what kind of made us human to begin with. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. Yeah. So I think it's kind of to not hunt is a new experiment for us. Yeah.
I mean, it's almost if you got conspiratorial about it,
Yeah.
it almost feels like there's this desire to separate people from their food and from cultivating their own food.
Control the food, control the people. Absolutely. Yes. I agree 100%. Because if you have control of the food, then you can make them do whatever you want. You know what I mean? So I would agree with that. Yeah. Not to be conspiracy theorist on here, but yeah,
Well, it's
I,
funny. I mean, saying that it's such a rational thought, and yet people instantly. I mean, the branding for conspiracy theories today is so good because
right.
there's so many under that umbrella. Where as soon as you talk about it, oh, tinfoil hat.
Right. Yeah. Well, then there's also the saying, like, I used to be a conspiracy theorist, but then they all came true. But yeah, that whole term conspiracy theory came from the CIA. Yeah, and they
Yeah, how
coined it,
funny is that
right?
the
Because
CIA would do that?
yeah, because people were like questioning, like, "Hey, I don't know if that happened." They're like, "Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist," you know, and and so that whole term was coined to deter people from asking questions.
I think it really caught on with the JFK assassination, right?
Yes,
Isn't that when it
exactly.
really
When people were like,
went next
"Hold
level?
on, something's not right here," and trying to get to the truth, and yeah, so it was, yeah, sus.
I mean, you want to talk about marketing? They have achieved an incredible level
Mhm.
of just being able to attach one word to everything
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and being
Well,
so effective at it. That's the crazy part.
right,
So
yeah.
effective.
Uh-huh. Well, it helps when you can control. Okay, how deep are we going on the conspiracies here? Because have you been watching like Twitter files and stuff?
I have. I
Yeah,
do not know enough. I actually there's a guy I want to bring on to talk about it because he's kind of somewhat in that realm.
right.
But from what I've read, government basically censoring people,
Yeah,
CIA,
right.
FBI, and the
Exactly.
crazy part is the mainstream media, whatever that means for whoever's listening, not talking
Not
about it.
talking about it. I know. Yeah, no, it's crazy. It
Have you
is
dug into that a lot?
not a lot, not enough to feel that I had authority to speak on it. So, but I do think that, you know, if you can control what people see and perceive, then you have a lot more control. Yeah, for sure.
What is your take from both of our limited perspectives here? What is your take on all of that?
I think it's terrible for the government to be censoring, you know, and not allowing free speech is a major issue. And then now seeing whatever's going on, you know, like I think that people should be able to say, you know, their truth and not I think it's terrible for the government to completely steer the public perception and to shut down certain voices that are very credible voices and to have silenced that is I think a major problem. Major problem. Yeah.
Well, the fact that they had this back door where they could just go in and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, this
Take
person
this down.
needs to
Yeah.
go."
Uh-huh.
That
Yeah.
should freak everybody out. That should
Right?
make everybody very uncomfortable. And
Seriously.
people just chalk it up to, well, that's what the government does. They probably deserved it. And then you look past the surface and you're like, well, this I've heard stories from that people were just calling for a cheaper vaccine. So regardless of your stance on the vaccine, a cheaper one, and they got pulled
Oh,
because
wow.
Pfizer was like, not what's BioNTech? I think
Yeah.
the parent
Uh-huh.
company reached out and said, "Hey,
Right.
we gotta.
Yeah.
This person's messing with the
Uh-huh.
bottom line. We gotta take this out."
Right.
Activists they were going after. I mean,
And you think about like the money that is driving that. So the money from the corporation is, you know, lobbying with the government and the CIA to censor certain things so that they can make more money. Yeah.
it's really uncomfortable,
Very.
and you
It's
have to
scary.
think if it's happening with Twitter,
Yeah.
what are the odds it's not happening with Facebook and YouTube?
I think they did come out and say Facebook was doing the same thing. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure they were.
It's kind of a red flag.
Right. Which makes you be like, well, I'm going to make sure I, you know, can take care of myself. You know what I mean? So, yeah, make sure I have enough food.
It's it's just weird because you have people that want to when they hear conspiracy theory, they want to just stick their head in the sand,
Mhm.
or they
Yeah.
hear the Twitter files and they just chalk it up to right wing extremism or
Right.
just fake news or
Yeah.
Russiagate. That's another thing that came out is that Russiagate was pretty much bullshit. Is my
Oh,
understanding
okay. Yeah,
that it was pretty
I don't know
much
anything, I
yeah,
don't know much about that one, so.
pretty much bullshit.
Yeah, right.
That there really wasn't any collusion.
Yeah. Oh, I believe that. Yeah. Uh-huh.
But now you're a conspiracy theorist.
Right. Yeah.
What? I mean, we can't even people can't even come to the table to talk about
Right.
these ideas anymore.
Yes. Uh-huh. We can't even ask the questions. And people say, trust the science. Well, that's the whole basis of science is to question everything. You know what I mean? Like question everything. And we should be able to question everything in science. That's the whole point of science. You know what I mean? Is asking questions and finding answers based on actual facts. You know what I mean? So of course we should be questioning science. So no, it's crazy out there, and I think people are feeling the effects of that. I think people are feeling like the world's getting kinda nuts, you
I
know what
think
I
people
mean?
are anxious. People are getting
Yes, I think so too, yeah,
very worked up, which
yeah,
is not great because people are already
right.
teetering on the edge.
Yes, uh-huh, people are already we've been on edge, since 2020 March hit, and we've been and then just more stuff keeps coming out, and we're like, "Okay, what's next?" You know what I mean? Like, what could possibly be, worse? But stuff keeps happening and stuff keeps rolling downhill, and, I think people are definitely on edge and very anxious, and I think that kinda makes them, suck back and think reevaluate, like the whole exodus from the cities has been happening, people moving out of the city into the country so that they can live a safer life, you know what I mean, like a more sustainable life. Like there's been a huge exodus of people leaving the city and leaving California.
Yeah, California in general,
Yeah,
just a mass
uh-huh,
exodus.
right, yeah, but from the cities is I think, so yeah, so I think people are kind of getting privy to it.
I think, I mean, tying all that together, I think people are realizing that it's not as stable as everybody would like to believe.
Right. Yes.
That this whole thing is just made up of people,
Mhm.
and people are very unpredictable.
And people that don't care about you, yeah, are the ones in charge. Yeah. Right.
And
Yeah.
everybody wants to pick a side.
I
I got my
know.
guy, he's looking out for me.
Uh,
And regardless if you like Trump, if you like Biden, they don't give a
they
shit
do not
about
care
you
about
at
you.
all.
I know. And that's the whole point, though, I think, from, higher up that we don't see is, to divide and conquer. You know what I mean? And we are totally being divided. And it makes me so sad. You know what I mean? Like friendships, like lifelong friendships and family relationships destroyed over this stuff that's been happening, you know? And that's horrible, that's heartbreaking. And but I at the same time think it's intentional. So um it's scary.
Well, what I've always heard is that if you keep people focusing on a plethora of problems, they can't ever get anything done. I
Hmm.
think that's kind of the problem with the momentum that we're on now is it's just one thing after another.
Right.
It's COVID,
Yes.
it's the police, it's
Right.
food, it's all of these issues,
Hmm.
it's Ukraine.
Hmm.
I mean, how are we supposed to stop, take a breath, and actually address a
Yeah,
problem
and
when
catch up.
another one keeps knocking
Right.
at the door?
Exactly. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, that's true.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah.
And I think that's, I mean, kudos to you. I think you've kind of tapped into that in a way because people want to be self sufficient. There's a new
Yeah.
resurgence of, okay, the world's falling apart. I
Right.
need to rely
Yeah.
on myself. I need to
Right.
be able to provide. I need to be able to have some food.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then they go to YouTube and they find you.
Right. Yes. And they find that it's actually not that hard. You know what I mean? And that's what I think my aim is to encourage people is it's really not that hard. It just takes learning some new skills. And you can do it. You know what I mean? Like and just pick one thing at a time and but yeah, I think there is a huge push right now of people wanting to get back to their food and be more self-sufficient. On that topic of self-sufficiency though, I will say that any I don't think that true self-sufficiency is really actually attainable unless you're like, you know, Joe up in the mountains and you've been living there for years by yourself. That is true self-sufficiency and I don't think that is what most of us really actually want, but I do believe that community sufficiency is attainable, and that kind of goes back to people trading with each other and whatever, but your community sufficiency, and that's really one of my big goals behind this is to help my community as a whole become more self-sufficient, because I think that the backbone of every community is food security. And so helping our entire community just inch closer to that goal, because we can't live on our own. To be very honest, we are dependent on each other, and we do want to be around other people as much as we say, like, we, especially in the homesteading community, like, people like don't want to be around other people, but we do, like, we like to be around other people, and we like to have those relationships and get together and whatever. And so I don't know that self-sufficiency is truly actually attainable, but I think community sufficiency is. And I think that's what our focus needs to be moving toward, and not getting all our stuff from all over the world. You know what I mean? Like, really supporting our local, and Humboldt's so good about that, about supporting local stuff. Um, but I think we need to be doing more, you know what I mean? And I think we're moving in that direction. I think people want to, especially here. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of romantic in a way as
Yeah.
well.
Uh-huh,
The
it
idea
is.
that
Yeah.
I can just depend on me and my community.
Right.
Like, I don't need
Yes.
to extend it to food grown in
Mhm.
whatever state, X miles
Exactly.
away,
Right.
where I can
Yeah.
just go down the street and Bob's
Yeah.
got it.
Exactly. Uh-huh, exactly. And you're like, I am really good at growing beets, but I know I can't process chickens, but I can trade some beets for some chicken. You know what I mean? Like, it can be, you know, us as like just a whole organism, you know what I mean, working together. So, I would love to see that happen more.
Well, I think that's a good goal to strive for,
Yeah.
because you're right. If shit does hit the fan, you being alone is not gonna
Yeah.
it's not gonna pan out how you think it is. But if you have a
Exactly.
community
Right.
and everybody's self-sufficient within that community, and then you
Right.
come together
Yes.
and help one another. Because I mean, you see that even today. If you're in the middle of nowhere and you break down, you're gonna need somebody else. If your
Exactly.
tractor
We
stops
need each
working,
other.
yeah, you need
We need
people.
each other, yes. And the more people that are more, self-sufficient or whatever, that means there's less people that aren't self-sufficient that are like panicking. You know what I mean? The more people that at least have a little bit of, awareness and knowledge, whatever, there, that means that's one less person that's like, at Winco immediately. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, just as a whole, moving towards that. Yeah.
Moving away from the people that are gonna bum rush you and say, "I need to be
Yeah.
with you because I
Yeah,
don't know what
uh-huh.
I'm doing."
I can't feed myself,
Yeah,
like,
so I'm gonna pair up with you, and we're just gonna stick together for
you know,
this.
yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, no, and if you think about it, like, if you don't have any homestead skills, they're not gonna let you
Yeah,
in,
why? You're just gonna be a
like,
drag on the food
right,
supply.
exactly, yeah, so thinking about developing those kinda skills and being able to do them proficiently enough that you are not reliant on the internet for it, you know what I mean? That's kinda counterintuitive for me to say that, but, like, learning it now so that you have it later, because it's a lot longer of a road than people probably think. Like 2020, people got chicks, and then they're like, "Oh, wait, it's gonna be 6 months before I have eggs." You know what I mean? Like, do it now, get chickens now, start growing stuff now so that you're ready beforehand, because if you wait until, crap hits the fan, then you're too late, you know? So, yeah, learning it now.
To get to your level of survivability, I guess, if you would phrase it like that, what are you talking in years? Would somebody have to
Oh,
dedicate to
I
be
don't know.
comfortable?
I think that they could pick up a lot in a year for sure. Yeah, if you like going through one growing season and eating seasonally and experiencing that, light years ahead of, so like if you are able to go through a year where you're starting now and like you're planting your garden now, and then go through the planting season and then the fresh eating season and then the canning season, then into the winter where you're eating from stores that you, and then once you've done that once, you're
Off to
gold
the
from it.
races.
Yes, exactly.
How
Yeah.
did you learn? Just reading
A
books,
lot of
trial and error?
YouTube.
YouTube,
Yeah,
wow.
a lot of YouTube, a lot of books in the beginning, especially a lot of books. Yeah, mostly books, and then more and more people started doing YouTube, and like I read a lot of like online articles and blogs and stuff like that, and then finding people like locally who knew how to do something. Like the first time I ever made pickles was with like my mom's friend, you know what I mean? Like a long, long time ago. And so that was, or the first time I made bread was in high school with my friend's mom showed me how to make bread. So finding the people, that do the things, and then learning from them. So yeah.
I noticed that most of your videos, it seems like canning is a heavy topic,
Yeah, canning's a heavy topic. Yes, for sure. Because that's just like the go-to
like the intro.
method of food preservation. Like when I'm making meals this time of year, I'm pulling stuff off the shelves. In the summer, I'm going to be pulling stuff straight out of the garden, but it's just because of the season. And canning's actually slower now, in January than it will be next August and September. Um, but yeah, canning's like the go-to. But I also do a lot of like curing and like the bacon and stuff like that. And the meats are all frozen. I do some dehydrating, but and I've looked in a little bit to freeze drying. Have you seen freeze drying? Okay, so freeze drying, you're supposed to be able to like if you get like one of those backpack meals. Have you ever seen those? Like when you go backpacking and there's that like freeze dried meal in a bag, you just add hot water and you have like macaroni and cheese or
Like an
whatever.
MRE type?
Sort of, not quite, but it's basically like a method of food preservation where it'll stay good for like 20 years. And but it's this huge machine. It has a pump, and you put it in there, and the texture can kind of come out. I'm still new to it. I have a friend locally who does the freeze drying thing, and I need to get together with her and experiment with some stuff. But that would be a more long, and it's also lighter than canning, so you can take it with you. You know what I mean? Whereas canning jars are like a heavy thing if you needed to like leave.
Bug out.
Yeah, like oh, tsunami is coming, like leave.
Let me grab my
Um,
jars.
my jars, yeah. So that's one advantage of freeze drying. But no, canning is kind of like the must have, excuse me, as far as food preservation. It's like the go to for preserving things and having them taste good, other than freezing. But yeah, I stick to meats for freezing
How long does canning typically last?
until it's not good anymore. It can last for years. Generally, I'm canning stuff and I will eat it usually within 2 years, but I've eaten stuff 5 years old and it's totally still good. Um, and it'll still be good, but the quality will start to go down after a couple years, and the texture and the quality will start to go down. But it can be good for a really long time. But in an ideal world, you only need your canned foods to stay good for 1 or 2 years. You know what I mean? Like I did tomato sauce 2 years ago and made enough that last year I actually totally failed at tomatoes and didn't do tomato sauce. And so, but I still have tomato sauce from 2 years ago that I'm still eating on. You know what I mean? So, so it lasts a long time, very long time. Yeah.
And with the freeze drying, do you have that degradation of the quality as well?
No,
It's
no,
just
that's
it's
just
solid.
yeah, frozen in state. Yes,
That's pretty
as
cool
far
for
as I
that amount
know.
of time.
Yes, but the machines to do it are really expensive, like 5 grand.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
so pretty
yeah,
big
yeah. So
investment.
it's a big like so yeah, that'd be a very big investment. Yeah. So
Is that what you're thinking of kind of leaning into next down
maybe
the
I
road?
don't know, probably not to be honest with you. Maybe eventually. But the canning serves me great, you know what I mean? So I have several canners, but I have like the All American, it's for geek speak, it's the All American 941. It's like the biggest canner that they make, and I can fit so many jars in
I
that
saw
thing.
your video about how many jars can I
Yeah,
fit into this
it's
thing?
insane. Like I did 100 pounds of tuna all at once between. I have two of them actually, but I did 100 pounds of tuna all in one, like before lunch in one sitting. Which when you can tuna, it has to be under pressure for 100 minutes. So it has to be like that's a long time, and then it has to depressurize before you put the next batch in. So to get that much tuna done at once is like super cool. Yeah,
Big goal.
yeah. Have you ever had home canned tuna?
I know.
Oh
I've
my
honestly I
gosh.
haven't that salsa might be
Oh,
one of maybe 5 things I've had that's homemade and canned.
oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Dude, so once you have home canned tuna, like, you will see store tuna as cat food. Like, there's no comparison. It's absolutely
That much of a difference.
oh my gosh, it's like big flakes of meat. It's absolutely delicious. Yeah, it's amazing. Flavor's way better. Yeah, most everything
That
home
seems to
yeah,
be the
yeah,
moral of the story
right.
is if you can do it on your own, do it because it's gonna be
Oh,
better.
yeah, so night and day better. Yeah, you'll never wanna go back.
What about processing of, like, animal meat? Do you do any of that, or
Oh,
do you
yeah.
have plans to do that?
Yeah, so I usually do a lot of chicken, so process those. And I was saying for people who want to process their own meat chickens, there is a trailer locally that has all the processing equipment on it that you can rent. I believe it's through the extension service. I don't have all the information, but I know that it exists. So it has, like, when you're processing chickens, you need to have cones to put them in for dispatch. And then you need a scalder to dunk them in to soften the feathers. And then you throw them into a plucker, which is like this big, it looks like a washing machine almost with all these rubber fingers. And you throw the chicken in there and it goes, and it plucks it in like 60 seconds. So it's like way faster. Anyway, so there's this trailer that you can rent that has all that equipment. And I think it's pretty inexpensive to rent it. So, but yeah, the meat chickens, pigs, beef cows, and then I've done turkeys in the past, and I used to do meat rabbits too, which meat rabbits are like the ultimate in, like, if crap really hit the fan, like if you could only have one protein source, it would be rabbits. So the cool thing about rabbits is they're meal sized, and so you're not dependent on refrigeration for a long time, or having to like a cow. Like if you do a steer, like you have to have a freezer. So they're meal sized, so you can have dispatch per meal or whatever. They can reproduce naturally, which meat chickens they can't, right? And they are usually ready in like 10 or 12 weeks, so way faster than like a chicken that you'd hatch. Um, and you can feed them without the feed store. So you can, there's a book called Beyond the Pellet, and you can feed meat rabbits with just stuff that you forage. Like you could go out and pick them, grass. So if you were really in a survival situation, like rabbits are totally the way to go. And they're also quiet; they don't make any noise. So if you're like trying to be on the down low or whatever, then they're also quiet. So meat rabbits are awesome, and they taste really good. Taste like have you ever had rabbit?
I've not.
Oh, it's like somewhere between like chicken and pork. It's very, very good actually. It's
Well, and
delicious.
quick breeding rate.
Yeah, and super quick. Yeah, it has a 30-day gestation. Yeah, and so you can breed like rabbits. Yes.
Do you
So
still breed rabbits
I
or
don't
no?
anymore. I don't have a need for it. If I really needed to, I would go back to it, and I do love rabbits, but I don't at the moment. Yeah. So
And you would still need a fat source, right? Isn't rabbit
So, okay.
famine or what is that?
So, yeah, so rabbit starvation or whatever. So that came from eating rabbits that were like wild hares, which are like super, super, super lean, like very, very lean. And yes, so in that situation, like if you were dependent on wild rabbits, you would not get enough meat or enough fat. But the domestic rabbits that we raise have tons of fat on them. Like they definitely have fat.
Shocker.
So I don't think we've done an updated analysis of how much fat is on a domestic rabbit, but it's far more than like that. So that came from like people only eating wild hares way back in the day, and they would literally waste away because they weren't getting enough fat. So I don't think that's the case with domestic rabbit. No, that's a good
Because
question.
that's what I
Hmm.
always heard was you can't just
Right.
survive off rabbit. But
Yeah.
that would make sense that
Right.
the rabbits that we're breeding in captivity are a little different.
Absolutely. Way, way different. Totally different animal. Yeah. Uh huh.
And so are you making videos of you doing that processing as
I
well?
plan on it. I am a little like worried about I
YouTube.
YouTube, and I'm
YouTube? All
still
roads lead back to YouTube.
I know, and I'm a little bit I just feel like I need to learn the boundaries of that, but I definitely plan on it because I've had a lot of people ask about it, and I've had people ask if I would process, chickens or whatever for them, and I'm like, I'll show you how. I don't want to do all your chickens, and you don't want to pay me what I would, to make it worth my time or whatever. But yeah, I do plan on doing videos on that. I just need to learn more about YouTube's
Heavy hand.
Yes, right. Yeah. So, because there's definitely things and I'm still working toward monetization. Like, I'm not monetized yet. So I'm like, I'll wait, until I am monetized and get to a point where I'm not like, I don't want those videos to be at the top when they're like reviewing me for monetization. So, yeah. But I do plan on it. Yeah.
Yeah, YouTube's content policy can be
Yeah.
interesting
Uh-huh.
to navigate.
Yes, I'm learning. And like I did the crab video on the crab catch and cook, and I took the crab in and I had cooked it and I was eating it and the radio was on, and it's playing a song on the radio, and I didn't even think about it, and someone was like, "Oh, you got to watch that because if you have, content or like, music playing in the background, then you can get that video demonetized because of that being in the video. So you have to watch for like that stuff. I'm like, I always have the radio on. Like, so yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff you have to watch out for sure.
Yeah, I'm still trying to work through all that because I've also heard that you can have certain things going on if you're talking and it's not just focused like music in the background, as long as it's not just playing the
Oh,
music and there's no
really?
silence. I don't know. Don't quote me
I
on.
don't
I'm
know.
still.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I get
Yeah,
flagged by YouTube. I mean,
right.
we have a love
Copyright
hate
claim. Yeah, I know.
relationship.
Yes, it's yeah. I'm learning though. It's a slow process, but I'm learning what they're okay with and what they're not. Yeah.
But I think that would be great. I would love to
Mhm.
watch those videos too. I think
Yeah,
that'd be
uh-huh.
another avenue for you to go down if you're interested.
Definitely. Yes, I would love to do that in the future. Yeah, that's definitely in the works. And I think that how it would work is I couldn't show the actual dispatch of it, but all the rest of the process, I think I could show all of that. So there used to be a class at Fortuna Feed that did a meat chicken processing class. Did you ever see that? I don't know if you ever did, but it was years ago. I don't know if you can even do it anymore, but they hosted classes and you would come and they would have a whole pen of meat chickens ready to go and you'd like they would demonstrate how to do it and then you'd go in and get your chicken. And that was actually not the first time I did it, but I took the class and you'd get your chicken and actually do the whole process yourself. And then at the end of the class, you'd take that chicken home with you. And so I thought that was really cool. I would love to see something like that happen again in the future. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome because I have
Yeah.
no idea how to butcher a chicken.
Right. Yeah.
I'd
Uh-huh.
just be
Like, where do
standing
I
there
where do I
holding it.
even
Yeah,
start?
what
Yeah.
do I do with this?
Yeah. And it's really not that hard. Well, the dispatch itself is always hard, but I think if that's not difficult for somebody, then they're probably a psychopath. You know,
Dispatch being
the
the
actual,
initial,
yes,
yeah,
the actual unaliving, yes,
unaliving.
yes, yeah,
Unaliving, that's a good way to put it.
yes. So that is definitely the hardest part of the entire process. But I kind of think that it's good for somebody to pay that karmic price and not expect someone else to pay that price for you, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, even if you do it once and understand what someone else is going through to do that for you, you know what I mean? I think it's a good perspective to have if you're gonna eat meat, to know what it's like.
I think it
So,
would be better across the board
yeah,
if people did that. I think it would make them more understandable of people who go out and hunt for their food. I think they would
that,
get the
yes,
connection.
uh-huh,
I think it would help ease some of the degree of separation from just going to the grocery store and
yes,
getting a tri-tip and then
mhm,
going home and thinking,
right.
"Oh, this is just how meat is."
Right. Yeah. And I think that it would help people understand the value of meat as well. And we would be more willing to pay more for it and less willing to waste any of it. If we understood the really true, like, if you've done that, you understand what that feels like. You know what I mean? So I think it'd be good for everybody. Yeah.
And you have an appreciation for what life really
Yeah,
is.
absolutely. Yes. Every day that we're alive, something else has to die. And that's just the reality of this planet that we live on. Every day that we live, something else has to die so that we can go on living. And I think that we like to pretend that's not true. You know what I mean? And we just like to stick our heads in the sand and and pretend that that's not the case. So, yeah, that's part of it.
What do you what's your day job? Do you have a day job?
Yeah, I work for a veterinarian, and so
Well, that's perfect,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and so yeah, so I work for him, and yeah, so that's what I do as a tech, yeah, so
That's
yeah,
cool. That's right up the alley of where
yeah,
you are. I mean,
yeah,
you couldn't think of a
and
better match.
right, and then I breed dogs too, so I breed miniature Australian shepherds as well, so that's kind of another avenue too. So,
Oh, that's cool. Yeah,
yeah.
I know somebody else. I was talking to somebody else the other day that breeds dogs, and she's shipping them all over the
Oh
world.
yeah,
I don't know
uh-huh.
if they were like purebred German shepherds, maybe,
Oh,
or
okay,
something. But
cool. Yeah, uh-huh.
she's out here
Yeah,
just
I
sending dogs
already
all over the place.
Yeah, I have my next 2 litters that are planned. Their wait lists are already full, and yeah, so good dogs.
What's your plan with the YouTube? Just keep doing
I'm
your thing
just
and see where it
gonna
goes.
film what I do. I'm just gonna keep filming what I've been doing, and that's kind of been my plan. I'm like, oh, whenever I have a task at hand that I would normally do, I'm just gonna film it and put it on YouTube, like right now I'm making fire cider, and so that'll be my next one, is because I ran out of fire cider and I needed more, and so that'll be the next one. And then I'll do, planting and selecting different varieties for vegetables, and I'm just gonna film what I do and see if it helps people. Yeah.
Well, not to blow smoke up your ass, but your videos are pretty awesome.
Oh,
I
thank
think
you.
you, especially with the B-roll that you have in your videos, I
Oh,
mean, it
thanks.
flows really well. I think
Oh,
you've got
thank
an knack
you.
for it.
Thank you
Take
very
that with a grain of
much.
salt, but I think it's pretty cool.
I'm so new to it. Like, I'm so new to it. I had the camera because for taking pictures of the puppies. And but then I learned, I was like, oh, I definitely need a different lens for different things, and so I invested in some different lenses. And then I watch a lot of YouTube too. So I know what I want to see, you know what I mean? And it's boring to just sit at and watch someone just talk and not have little stuff in between. And so thank you very much. That means a lot because I feel so like fish out of water, like learning it. And it takes me so, I'm sure I'll get more efficient at the editing, but the editing takes me so long. And I'm like, why can't I move the text? It's so frustrating sometimes, but I'm getting the hang of it. But thank you very much. That means a lot because I feel like it's, yeah, hard.
Yeah, I think you've got a knack for it. There's a learning curve with the back end stuff, the editing, the trying to get
Yes.
everything to lay out how
Yes.
you want, but I think
Uh-huh.
you've got a natural talent for that.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
What are you doing editing wise? What software do you use?
Adobe Premiere Pro. Yeah.
I just started using
Oh,
Pro. I
really?
was doing DaVinci
Okay.
and Pro's it's just way
That's
better.
what Lisa, the one who told me like to do the YouTube, she said to use that program. So I got that program. And
That was a good call.
it's hard though, isn't it? I don't know what
Well,
DaVinci's like, so.
I think DaVinci's harder. So for
Oh,
me,
okay.
after struggling with DaVinci for
Oh,
2
yeah.
years,
Uh-huh.
moving to Premiere was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's okay. And
Oh, okay.
this is way easier than what you're doing because I don't have to think about, oh, when do I do this? Do I need to add this B-roll? It's either
Right.
you talking or it's me talking. So it
Yeah.
kind of takes a lot of the heavy lifting
Out of
out
the
of my
editing.
hands.
Yes. Uh-huh. Or like going back and like, oh, I forgot to film that, and then like setting it all back up. And the thumbnail is a huge part. Like I
It's
did not
important.
realize how important the thumbnail is. And so yeah, that has been a whole other thing. Like so any like I used to be like, oh yeah, the thumbnail. Now I'm like, okay, what's the before I even start filming anything, I'm like, okay, what is the thumbnail and the title gonna be? Because if nobody clicks on it, no one's gonna watch it. And so I'm thinking about the thumbnail before I even start filming anymore. So that's a big part of it.
That was some of the best advice I watched in a YouTube video was the thumbnail is pretty much everything
Everything.
because it doesn't matter how good the video is.
Yeah,
If people don't click on it,
exactly.
it doesn't matter.
It could be the best video in the world, and if nobody's clicking on it, then it doesn't matter.
It just fades away.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the thumbnails, I'm still tweaking thumbnails and titles, and
Yeah.
I think that's just a game that you're always
Yes.
trying to figure out.
Yeah, I joined some like Facebook groups for like the homesteaders of YouTube or whatever. And I'm like, how's this? They're like, nope, bad. Go back to the drawing board. And so that's been really nice to get feedback from other people that are actually successful with it. And no, it's a lot. Yeah, it's definitely takes a lot longer than just doing it. But yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's a good resource. I
Yeah.
think it's awesome that you're doing it.
Thanks.
I
Yeah.
think people will really like it and take advantage of that and learn some new skills, hopefully.
Right. Yeah. And if nothing else, like just learn some things about where your food's coming from. You know what I mean? Like, even if you don't do it, like understanding what someone else did to do it. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Yeah, it's good.
That's awesome. Well, Tessa, I really appreciate you coming on. We'll have
Thank
to
you.
do this again.
Yeah,
It
for
was a lot
sure.
of
I'm
fun.
down. Yeah. And thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Uh-huh.
Do you want to plug where people can find you, where they
Oh.
can find your channel, all your stuff?
Sure. Yeah. So it's Modern Homesteading with Tessa on YouTube. That's pretty much it. And yeah, it's a baby channel. So if anyone wants to
Subscribe.
like
Hit
and
that subscribe button.
that would be awesome. I'm like almost to 700 and trying to get to 1,000. So that would be super, super awesome.
Okay, well, Tessa, really thank you. I had a lot of fun talking with you.